Let's go back to that CBC meeting because you bring up some other things in this clip.
Why is it that in 1960 we had 36% of black males who were incarcerated in 1960? I was rereading the Moynihan Report, which the deceased Daniel Patrick Moynihan wrote for President Johnson about the state of black America as he saw it in 1964. And then I thought about today, where we have 55% of blacks in prison. And then I looked back at the report and I saw that we, at the time in 1964, when Moynihan wrote this report to give it to President Johnson, he said the biggest thing that he saw, the crisis affecting black Americans, was the breakdown of the black family.
Two issues there, and 55% of black males are in prison today?
It's high. It's quite an enormous amount. I think it's about 55%. I don't have, the...
Why? I mean, I've heard folks that don't think like you say the reason is because the laws are written against the black folks and the drugs and the crack versus the crack.
Right,
cocaine
the sentencing guidelines
powder
for,
versus
right for crack cocaine versus the powder. Right. Shelby Steele, who's a great professor at Stanford, I believe, and also a great published author, writes a lot about this. And as well as many others, but he comes to mind. Juan Williams has written about this when the Trayvon Martin shooting happened. And, it's not the sentencing guidelines that the reason why you have a disproportionate number of black males in prison. It's not. It's because we have had, and I talk about Daniel Patrick Moynihan's report, the Moynihan report that he wrote for President Johnson. And the whole report is about how he saw a breakdown in the black family, and simultaneously, parallel to this breakdown, he was seeing a rise among blacks on welfare. And he said, this is a very disturbing trend to me. And he said, I'm seeing a lot of black families headed by single black women. I'm very concerned about this. At the time, it was around a little over 20% of black homes headed by single black women. Today, you have, the illegitimate birth rate, it was about 23% of all black babies born were born to unwed mothers. Today, it's 73%. So the reason why we have more black males in prison, in my opinion, is not because of sentencing guidelines for crack versus powder cocaine. It's because you have 73% of black babies born into homes without fathers, where you don't have a marriage to support and welcome this child and nurture this child. That's what it's because of. And you have these failed policies, in my opinion, by Democrats who think the solution is let's just throw money at it. Because think about this, Brian. Our system rewards women for not having men in the home, no fathers. You get money. You can be, and I'm not saying that white Americans aren't on welfare. This is the number of people will tell you, oh, more whites on welfare. True, but blacks represent a smaller portion of the population, and we have a disproportionate number of us who are on welfare. Not a good thing. That is not empowering. And if we look at what was happening in the 60s, we haven't done much better. We've gotten worse. How is this empowering the black Americans?
How did we get to the point 40% of the children are born out of wedlock in the country, all races, 73%, as you say, black race born out of wedlock? Where did this come from?
I think what it's coming from is two things. People don't talk about how, it's great to get married. It's great to have a family.
Have you done it?
These are good things. I don't have any children because I'm not married. I would like to get married first and then have a child. But so no, I haven't done the family thing, but I've been raised by two loving parents. And I think somewhere along the line, we as a country have said marriage isn't sexy anymore. Family isn't sexy anymore. Well, and the numbers are bearing this out. We have an education gap. I mean, I'm talking about black Americans now, but overall, 40%, You just highlighted that 40% of babies born out of wedlock. I mean, that's really what it is. Let's not sugarcoat it here. That doesn't do. You're not doing kids a favor, and you're not doing our country a favor.
But how do you change that? I mean,
well, you change it by talking about. I don't understand. When I was growing up and I went to school, we talked about teachers. I guess could talk about traditional family values and not be accused of being non-politically correct. I mean, it sounds very basic, but I don't understand why, on a very fundamental level, why aren't we talking to little kids about, you know, family? I mean, really, and maybe the family is changing a little bit, the face of it, but why can't we talk about family? And also sex education, we need to bring that back into public schools. I remember talking, you know, learning about all that, the biology of the body and all that, the birds and the bees in middle school, you know, in a very scientific way, of course, and it was reinforced at home. But if we're going to talk about sex education, we also should be talking about abstinence. And hey, guys, there's a great way not to get pregnant, not to have sex, and there's nothing wrong with abstinence.
I've got one of your blogs from April the 11th, 2012. The headline is, "It's time for women to reject feminism and kiss Peter Pan goodbye."
Yes, it is.
In an attempt to explain why a generation of women born in the 1960s and 70s are finding themselves living lives of solitude, a male friend emailed me all the single ladies, thinking I'd buy into the writer's load of crap. Strong. 39-year-old single woman spends an endless amount of ink trying to convince herself and single women everywhere that they are happy living empowered lives of solitude, which couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
What fired you up over this one?
I think it was, I'm trying to remember what article that was, Atlantic Monthly or something like that, but that I wrote about. But what the article I was referencing, what fired me up is that we do have a lot of women, I would say late 30s, 40s, who were highly educated. Some people would say overly educated, and we're single. You know, we're coming up short on the man department. And I think that when I think back in my mother's generation, it was, while they had fewer choices as far as careers go, you know, most of them, majority of them, if they wanted to be married, they were married, they had families. And I think with our generation, they wanted us to so much take advantage of the opportunities before us, they forgot to go back to basics and say, you know what, it's what I told you earlier, Brian. It's okay. Marriage is okay. It's actually a fun thing. And I think what bothers me with feminism is that you can do it all. You know, you can have a baby without a man. You can bring home the bacon. You can cook it up in the pan. And the fact is, you just can't. Women can't have it all. I don't think you can be a CEO of any company and have it all as a woman. You can't have a family and be a good mom at the same time.
I do want to read this line just for the audience's sake. While some women may generally want to live alone, I believe that most women, including the author, meaning you, don't want to live in solitude or be an independent woman.
Yeah, I believe that. I think if you put women in a confessional situation, even if they don't necessarily believe in God, but whoever their uber power is that they put their confidence in and their, you know, life, so to speak. If you were to ask a woman, do you really want to be alone? And I'm talking more of, you know, I don't want to get into whether you're heterosexual or whatever. I think most women want to be with someone.
This I'd like to have you explain. You write, during my senior year of college at Georgetown University, I was forced to take a feminist criticism seminar as part of my honors English major and hated it.
Yeah, I did hate it.
Why?
Because all we read for the semester was criticism and critiques about how Shakespeare was a misogynist, D.H. Lawrence was a misogynist, I think Ibsen was thrown in there. All the classics were somehow bad men in the way they portrayed women. I remember being in the discussion as we were trying to deconstruct the classics.
By the way, did you have to take this course?
Yes, I had to take it because
at
if
Georgetown,
I wanted,
Catholic University?
Oh yeah, if I wanted to be an honors, graduate with honors English major, I had to take it. There was 2 seminars they offered, one in the fall and one in the spring. So we sat around, and I remember looking at the professor, and I said, you know, I'm sorry, I just don't think Shakespeare was trying to, you know, throw gasoline on women. He gave women voices. Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, Juliet. And so at the end of the class, what really bothered me, and we had to read a lot of criticism written by lesbian writers, and I was like, why do we have to keep reading all this stuff by lesbian women? You know, I mean, that's a redundant statement, but lesbian writers, you know, all this criticism. I just don't get it. So at the end of the class, the professor tells us, by the way, I just want to tell you all I'm gay, and I just wanted you to know that. So I'm thinking to myself, why is she telling us at the end of the class? And it might have been nice to know that at the beginning of the seminar, because then I would have known why she was shoving all this, you know, lesbian criticism down our throats. I mean, it was really, you know, and I know we all are subjective individuals and we come from a subjective place about where we were raised and who we are, but my parents were paying good money for me to go to Georgetown University, and I had to take a class which I felt was very slanted and biased. And I think feminism is a bunch of garbage. I think it's written to brainwash women into believing they can do it all on their own, and the big bad world is out there to hate them. Well, the world doesn't, you know, not all men hate women.
All right.
So
we're almost out of time, but the final question for you is looking at, not that we want to start 2016 already, but give us an example of the kind of candidate that you think on the Republican side could win in 2016 that you would like.
That I would like and that could win. Well, 2016, like you said, is a long ways away, and a lot can happen before that.
You can name more than one, but just so to get a sense of... You
know, I like Jeb Bush. I like the former governor of Florida. I know, but he's a white guy, but he's done great things on inclusion. A lot of people across demographics like him. I like Allen West, but I don't think Allen West right now could probably get elected on a presidential ticket. I think Marco Rubio's who's everybody is talking about, but you know, I think he'd be an interesting candidate, but I think 2016 is going to be, it's too early. So I don't know. I think we got an outlier out there that I don't know about.
We're out of time. Crystal Wright, who has the conservativeblackchick.com website and is the principal of the Baker Wright Group, a public relations firm, and we thank you.
Thank you.
For a DVD copy of this program, call 1-877-662-7726. For free transcripts or to give us your comments about this program, visit us at qna.org. Q&A programs are also available as C-SPAN podcasts.